Friends, this story was sent to me by a subscriber of my channel. You will be very surprised to know what happened to him. I urge you to watch this video to the end. The vacancy sign flickered in the dark. A cheap roadside motel. The kind you pass 100 times without noticing. But tonight I had no choice. I was too tired to keep driving. The nearest town was still miles away, and my eyes felt like they were filled with sand. I pulled into the empty lot. The only other car was an old, rusted pickup. The kind that looked like it had been parked there for years. I told myself it didn't matter. I just needed a few hours of sleep. Then I'd be back on the road. The motel lobby was silent. Dim yellow lights buzzed overhead. The air smelled stale like old carpet and cheap air freshener. No music. No TV. Just a small desk at the back, where an old man sat behind a newspaper. He didn't look up when I walked in. Didn't move until I cleared my throat. Then, slowly, he folded the paper and stared at me. His eyes were too dark. Like the pupils swallowed the color whole. "Need a room?" he asked. His voice was thin, raspy, like he hadn't spoken in a long time. "Yeah," I said. "Just for the night." He nodded, reached under the desk, came back up with a single key. No keycard. An actual metal key. Room 108. "Cash only," he said. I hesitated. Who the hell doesn't take cards anymore? But I didn't argue. I just handed over the money, grabbed the key, and headed for the door. Before I stepped outside, he spoke again. "No visitors." I turned. "I'm alone." His expression didn't change. "No visitors," he repeated. "No matter what." Then he picked up his newspaper. And I wasn't sure he'd even been talking to me at all. Room 108. The hallway was long, silent. Faint stains spotted the carpet. The kind of stains you don't want to think too hard about. Doors lined the hall, identical except for their peeling numbers. Most looked unoccupied. No sounds. No TVs. No movement. Like the motel was waiting. I found 108. Slid the key into the lock. The door stuck for a second before swinging open with a groan. The room was small, basic. A queen-sized bed, a wooden nightstand, an old TV. One of those bolt-locked windows that never actually opens. The air inside was too still, like no one had been in here for a long time. But the bed was freshly made. The towels folded neatly, like someone had been expecting me. I dropped my bag, checked the bathroom. Nothing weird. Just a small, cracked mirror and an old shower with hard water stains. I told myself I was just tired. That the old man at the desk was just a weirdo. That in a few hours, I'd be back on the road, never thinking about this place again. I stripped off my jacket, turned on the shower, and then, I saw the first sign that something was very, very wrong. At first, the water came out rusty. I sighed. Just bad plumbing. But then, it changed. The color deepened, turned thicker, darker. The smell hit me all at once. Iron, copper, not rust, not water, blood, pouring from the showerhead in thick, steaming waves. I stumbled back. My breath hitched. I reached for the faucet. The handle wouldn't budge. The blood kept coming, splashing against the tub, the walls, my shoes. I grabbed a towel, pressed it to my nose, trying not to gag. Then, a knock at the door. I froze. The old man's warning. "No visitors." The knock came again. Louder. A slow, deliberate rhythm. 3 knocks. Then silence. I stepped toward the door, heart hammering. Pressed my eye to the peephole. The hallway was empty. I swallowed hard. Waited. Nothing. Just the faint hum of the motel lights. I exhaled. Shook my head. "I'm just tired." I turned back toward the bathroom. The shower was off. Bone dry, like nothing had ever happened. I stood there for a long time. My stomach knotted. I checked my shoes. No blood. No stains on the walls. No proof that anything had happened at all. But I knew what I saw. And I knew what I smelled. I stepped toward the sink. Turned on the tap. Water. Just water. I splashed my face. Tried to shake the feeling. Then, the knock came again. 3 slow, deliberate taps. Then silence. I swallowed hard. I stepped back from the door. The peephole showed nothing. Just the long, empty hallway stretching into darkness. No shadows. No movement. Like no one had ever been there at all. It's just my imagination. I wanted to believe that, but the hair on my arms stood on end. Something was wrong with this place. And deep down I knew I was not alone in this room. I locked the door. Deadbolt. Chain. Everything. I wasn't taking chances. Then I grabbed my phone. Checked the time. 3:12 a.m. No signal. Of course. I sat on the edge of the bed, exhaling. I'll leave first thing in the morning. But I knew that was a lie, because morning felt too far away. And I had the sinking feeling I might not make it until then. The TV. I grabbed the remote. Tried to distract myself. The TV flickered to life. Static. Then, a grainy black and white image appeared. At first, I couldn't tell what I was looking at. The footage was shaky, distorted. Then, my stomach dropped. Because it was this room. Room 108. And the TV was showing a live feed of the door. I grabbed the remote. Flipped the channels. But every single one showed the same thing. The door. The empty hallway. And then, the doorknob twisted. My breath hitched. I turned to the actual door. It was still locked. Still bolted. But on the TV screen, it was opening. Inches at a time. I jumped up. Turned the TV off. The room plunged into silence. I stared at the door. Waiting. Listening. Nothing. But I could feel it. Something was on the other side. And it was waiting for me to open it. The handprint. I forced myself to breathe. You're just tired. That's what I told myself. I walked toward the door. Slow, careful. Pressed my hand against the wood. It was ice cold. I leaned in. Listening. Nothing. Then, a single knock. Not from the hallway. From inside the room. Right behind me. I spun around. No one there. But my breath hitched. Because on the bathroom mirror, there was a handprint. Smudged, wet, streaked down the glass. And the worst part? It wasn't mine. The bathroom. I grabbed my bag. I was leaving. I didn't care if I had to sleep in my car. I yanked open the door. And froze. The hallway was different. The old, faded carpet was now soaked. Deep red. Like it had absorbed gallons of blood. The walls were peeling, blackened, rotting. And the air smelled thick, like decay. Like something long dead. I slammed the door shut. Tried to catch my breath. I was trapped. And I knew, somehow, room 108 did not want me to leave. The shower again. A new sound filled the room. A slow, dripping noise. I turned toward the bathroom. The shower was on again, filling the air with steam. But I never touched the faucet. I stepped forward. The handprint was still on the mirror. The door was partially open. And behind the curtain, I heard breathing. Slow, ragged, wet, like something was waiting inside. Like it had been there the whole time. I reached out, took the edge of the curtain, pulled it back, and my mind went blank with terror. Because there was something in the tub. A figure, curled up, soaking wet. It wasn't moving, but its chest rose and fell in shallow breaths. Its skin was pale, wrinkled, like it had been in water too long. And then, twitched. I stumbled back, hit the counter. The thing in the tub began to unfold. Its arms twisted, too long, too thin. The bones cracked as it moved. Its head tilted toward me, but I couldn't see its face. Just wet, tangled hair hanging over its eyes. It opened its mouth. A deep, rattling voice. Don't open the door. And then, it lunged at me. I don't remember running. 1 second, I was staring at the shape in the tub. The next, I was slamming the bathroom door shut, heart hammering. My hands shook violently as I braced against the sink. My breath came in short, sharp gasps. There was no one in the room with me. There couldn't be. But I knew what I saw. The water. The shape. Something or someone had been in that bathtub. I wasn't imagining it. Couldn't be. I slowly turned toward the door. It was silent now. No splashing. No shifting movement. Just the soft hum of the motel lights. Like nothing had ever happened. I forced myself to move. I had to check. I reached for the knob, then stopped. There was a single wet footprint on the tile floor. Small. Human. Not mine. And it was facing the door. Like whoever had been inside had gotten out. Like they had left the bathroom. And were somewhere in the room with me. I turned slowly, my stomach twisting. The air was too still. The shadows in the corners felt deeper. I didn't want to move. I didn't want to look. But I had to. I reached for the bedside lamp and flicked it on. Nothing. The chair by the window. Empty. The closet door. Open just a crack, just like before. Nothing. My bag was right where I left it. My shoes, my jacket, all untouched. I exhaled sharply. No one was here. There was no intruder. Just my own tired, sleep-deprived mind playing tricks on me. That had to be it. Had to be. I sat down on the bed. Tried to steady my breathing. I was exhausted. Maybe I had dozed off. Maybe the shower, the thing in the tub. All of it was just some half-dream I snapped out of too late. That made sense. More sense than the alternative. The room was empty. I was alone. I repeated those words in my head. Over and over. But then, a sound. Faint. Near the door. A slow, scratching noise. Like nails dragging against wood. Not knocking. Not pounding. Just scratching. Slow. Steady. I sat up fast. Couldn't breathe. I turned toward the door. But the peephole was covered. Like someone was pressing their hand over it from the outside. I froze. The scratching stopped. A few seconds passed. Then, a single knock. I didn't move. Didn't answer. I thought about the old man at the front desk. No visitors. Whoever was out there wasn't supposed to be. I waited. Nothing. I crept toward the door. Every nerve in my body screaming at me to stop. But I had to look. Had to see. I leaned in. Pressed my ear against the wood. Silence. I exhaled. Relief washed over me. Maybe it was just another guest. Someone drunk. Knocking on the wrong. The doorknob turned. Slow. Deliberate. I stumbled back. Heart pounding. The bolt held. The lock didn't move. But someone had tried it. Someone had tried to get in. I backed toward the bed. Sat down. The room felt different now. Like I was being watched. I checked my phone. No signal. No Wi-Fi. No way to call the front desk. I glanced at the nightstand. There was a motel phone wired into the wall. I grabbed it, put it to my ear. Nothing. No dial tone. No static. Just dead air. I placed it back down. I wasn't staying here. Not till morning. Not another hour. Not another second. I grabbed my bag. Threw on my jacket. I was leaving. I stormed to the door, unlocked it, and yanked it open. The hallway was empty. It was always empty. The carpet was still damp. The buzzing lights flickered faintly. The room across from mine sat open. Wide open. But inside, only darkness. No luggage. No movement. Nothing. Just an empty, unlit room. I stepped forward. Looked left. Right. No one in sight. But the feeling wouldn't leave. The weight of eyes on me. I turned back to my door. And that's when I saw it. Something was wedged in the doorframe. Piece of paper. No. A photograph. I grabbed it. Turned it over. And my blood ran cold. It was a photo of me. Taken from inside my room. And written on the back. In messy, uneven letters. You left the door unlocked. My hands went numb. I turned fast. Checked my door. And realized it was wide open. Not just open. Broken. The lock snapped. The bolt mangled. Someone had been inside. Had been in there while I was sleeping. I backed away. I wasn't alone. I had never been alone. I turned toward the front desk. I needed help. I needed to find that old man. I started moving, fast. And then I heard it. A door creaking open at the end of the hall. And a voice. Low. Calm. You shouldn't have come here. The voice came from the end of the hall. Low. Calm. Too calm. You shouldn't have come here. I turned slowly. A figure stood in the dim light, just beyond the flickering motel sign bleeding through the window. Tall. Motionless. I couldn't see his face. I didn't want to. His posture was unnatural, too still, too deliberate. like he was waiting for me. I took a step back. The motel floor creaked under my weight. And that's when I saw it. The other doors were open. Every single room down the hall. Wide open. Dark inside. And from one of them something dragged across the floor. A slow, wet scraping noise. Like something being pulled. I tried to swallow, but my throat was dry. I didn't want to look. I had to. My eyes flicked to the door closest to me. And there, just beyond the threshold, I saw it. A hand. Small. Pale. Fingers curled against the carpet. Motionless. Like a broken doll discarded. The dragging sound came again. The hand twitched just barely. Then, it was yanked violently into the darkness. Gone. My stomach lurched. I stumbled back toward my room. The figure at the end of the hall hadn't moved. But I knew somehow he didn't need to. I rushed inside, slamming the door, bolting the locks. My breath came fast, shallow, ragged. I pressed my back against the door, listening, waiting, silence. Then, a new sound, scratching, not at the door, not outside, from under the bed. Something small, something breathing, slow, shallow inhales. Right beneath me, my entire body locked up. I wanted to move, couldn't. The bed creaked, a soft rustling. I forced myself to look. I dropped to my knees, heart pounding, stomach in my throat. I grabbed the edge of the blanket, lifted it, and saw nothing, just empty darkness. But the breathing, it was still there, right in front of me, too close. But I saw nothing. I dropped the blanket, stepped away fast. I needed to get out. Now, I grabbed my bag, threw it over my shoulder. I didn't care where I went. I just wasn't staying here. I turned to the door and stopped dead. A piece of paper had been slid under it. I bent down, hands shaking, picked it up, turned it over. Polaroid photo, taken from inside the room. Picture of me, standing in front of the mirror, looking right at the camera. Except, I never took this photo. And behind me in the reflection, there was a man, tall, motionless, standing right behind me, watching. I ran, ripped open the door, bolted down the hall. The doors were still open. The dragging sound followed me, soft, slow, like something moving just out of sight. I reached the front desk. The old man was still sitting there, still reading his newspaper. I slammed my hands on the counter. Who the hell is in that room? He didn't look up, didn't flinch, just turned a page. You should have stayed inside. My breath hitched. Who took that photo? You left your door unlocked. His voice was flat, emotionless. You let them in. I stared at him. My hands were trembling. Something shifted behind me. I turned. The hall was longer now. Too long. The doors still open. The dragging sound closer. I spun back. Call the cops. The old man sighed. You don't get it, do you? He set the newspaper down. And for the first time he looked at me. And I realized his eyes were gone. Nothing but deep, sunken pits. You already checked in. You can't leave now. Something grabbed my wrist. Fingers. Thin. Ice cold. I looked down and saw the small, pale hand crawling out from under the counter, gripping me and pulling me down. The small, pale hand tightened around my wrist. I jerked back, but the grip was too strong. Thin fingers dug into my skin, pulling me toward the counter. I stumbled, kicked at the floor, my heartbeat slamming in my ears. Let go. The old man just watched, didn't move, didn't blink. He wasn't going to help me. He never was. I grabbed a pen off the desk and stabbed it down, straight into the hand. A low, wet sound filled the air. Not a scream, not pain, just breathing, slow, heavy, right under the counter. The grip loosened. I yanked my arm free, didn't think, just ran. The hallway was wrong. The lights flickered violently, barely working. The carpet squished under my feet, damp, rotting. The walls seemed tighter, closer, and the doors were all shut now, except for one. Mine. Room 108. The door stood open, waiting. I bolted for the exit. The lobby stretched ahead, impossibly far. Like I'd never reach it. Like I was running in place. Then, a shadow moved in my peripheral vision. A figure stepped out of room 108. Tall, unmoving, watching. I didn't look. I didn't dare. I kept running, past the front desk, toward the glass doors. But the parking lot outside was empty. My car was gone. I slammed into the door. Locked. The old man's voice rose behind me. "No one ever leaves, son." I turned. He was standing now, behind the desk. And behind him, all the doors down the hallway had opened again. Dark rooms. Gaping. Waiting. A sharp pain bloomed in my skull. A dizzying, nauseating pull. Memories flickered. Blurry images of this same hallway. These same locked doors. This same moment. Again. And again. And again. I had been here before. I had never left. I turned to the old man, panic rising in my throat. "What is this place?" He tilted his head, smiled just slightly. "You already know." And then, everything went dark. I woke up in room 108, the bed made, the lights humming softly, the air still, like nothing had happened, like I had just checked in. A knock at the door, 3 slow taps, then silence. I reached for my phone, checked the date, and my blood ran cold, because it was the same night, all over again.